Check, 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 check. Oh my gosh. Well, that didn't go according to plan. Um, yeah. um, yeah, that did not go according to plan. All right, I think everyone can hear me now, and my apologies that on my first live I couldn't. My sound wasn't working, so that was embarrassing. But instead of I guess the original title of what I've learned in the last 10 years of marketing, I'm just gonna say, hey, let me just introduce myself. Let's keep it simple. For those that uh, don't know me, my name is Nathan Webster. I live in the Pacific Northwest in Vancouver, Washington. And over in Vancouver, Washington, it's not British Columbia, Canada. It is above Portland, Portland, Oregon. And I can put that in the chat. And for those that are on, feel free to tell me like where you're at, what and how you found me. Would love to learn more about you. Um, what pays the bills is I have a marketing agency that I've been doing for the last 10 years. And in my last previous live that didn't go right, it was titled What I've Learned in the Last 10 Years of Marketing. And it has been a crazy ride because, as I started to say, it was not, I didn't know anything like what I know now. And of course, as entrepreneurs start off is saying, and I'm looking at my other screen here, uh, people say, I thought this was going to be what I was getting into until you realize, like, this was not what I was getting into. So initially, when I started my agency, I was like, let me just do some social media. As someone I knew did websites, and I had a nonprofit at the time, and I was doing my nonprofit, and I needed a website, and I got burnt on a website, and it was all the way bad, and I was just like, you know what? Let me just go and figure out how to do this myself. When you kind of get to that point where you get frustrated and you're like, you know what? I'll figure out how to do this myself. I'm not going to rely on this person or that person or this agency. And on top of that, the website that I wanted, I couldn't afford. So I'm like, okay, well, I need a website. How do I go about getting a website and not putting myself to where I can't afford it? So long story short, that's what started the marketing agency. And it was something back then where um, it was in some ways the wild, wild west of you could do whatever because we had a good economy and it wasn't that bad. Like I went to family and I was gonna say family, friends and family. I don't know why we say friends and family when it should be family and friends, but at least that's how I say it. So I went to I went to family and friends, and then when I was going to family and friends, I was talking to them, but then I also went to some of my colleagues and said, "Hey, this is where it's at." And it was one of those things to where uh, started doing websites, I started doing business development, and then I started to do marketing consulting, and then I started to do business development consulting. And then at the same time, I became a professor at my local college. And then every year I was just doing more and more and more. And so what I wanted to talk to you about is just what I learned in the last 10 years. I keep this short. I don't have a presentation. This is my first time doing this. So I do want it to, put it out there for the folks that want to start a company, want to start marketing, want to start engaging. I will just tell you out, like, just to keep it real, it's hard. And it's hard because we are not taught, we are not wired to think like an entrepreneur. wired to think as creators. We're not wired. Now, in the beginning, before we enter this indoctrination called school, we think that way. But when we get into school, and nothing wrong, I'm not saying anything wrong with school, but when we get into understanding how to be innovative, which means are creating solutions. We're taking complex problems and we're breaking them down. We're asking for help. We're telling people, hey, this is a problem. I need help. Or you doing something, let me help you. We do that as kids. We learn that it's okay to color outside the lines. But once we get into school, they tell us this is how you should do it, and then you get graded on how you should do it. And if you fail on how you do it, they tell you that's bad. But in business and entrepreneurship, failure is necessary. It is the very thing that will put you in alignment of where you're going to thrive. But that failure in school is taught to be a bad thing when it should be celebrated in entrepreneurship, because not to say it feels any better, because it's just like rejection, it sucks. But now you're understanding that in your failure of building this business, you're now succeeding because you figured out what didn't work. And now you're taking what didn't work to say what does work. So, and what I learned in the 10 years of marketing is we are all wired to consume. We're wired to consume in a way that is some ways unhealthy. I just watched a Netflix special called Buy Now. That was a crazy documentary because they even talked about in one place in the world where they only have 15 million people and they're getting 30 million of pieces of garbage sent to their country, getting washed up on the shorelines. It's Netflix. It's on Netflix. It's called Buy Now. Go check that out. That is one of the best documentaries that I've seen in a long time, that we talk about this consumerism. And that's in marketing, we're being trained, or not being trained, we are being hired to get people to buy. And the Buy Now documentary, and this is interesting to me. I'm talking about this documentary, but it has very, very good parallels of how it is about. I'm not going to say the names because I'm not being sponsored. I don't want to be sued. It is about this company using technology as a CRM and getting people to do things that they wouldn't have usually have thought of. That's marketing. Marketing is creating a message and getting people comfortable to the point where they are going to buy. They are going to make that purchase. They will move forward with doing something that they maybe possibly shouldn't have. And this is where I started to learn how to do this with my clients. I live in a small town, and it's kind of like who knows who sort of a thing. And now we have, like, these things to where we just like, I want this, and I push that button, where it's very transactional. I work in the realm of we keep things relational. So when it comes to me, I started entrepreneurship at a very young age. I didn't know I was an entrepreneur, but it was one of those things to where, and I see there's some people that are on, let me put in the chat, um, tell me where you're from. Also, I love to know if you're a fellow entrepreneur. Uh, Also, what's your questions on marketing? So these are all things to where I started to learn as a marketer. And when you first take on having a business, you like, I'm going to do it all. I can solve this. I can do this. And then you start wearing all these different hats and you're like, ooh, yeah, I can't do this, for the smart ones. But hey, look, I will say that there are different type of business owners. You have folks that say, hey, look, I'm just going to be the business. I'm going to be basically a freelancer. I'm going to take projects on. I'm going to get hired on when I can. I'm going to work with people when I can. And it's basically they are exchanging time for money, but they're doing it under like their business. But then you have folks that are building a business like me. I don't have employees, but I use other business owners because I like working with other business owners that are somewhat freelancers. And we like to do things the way we like to do things. And we understand that speak. And so probably I will add employees, but I would like to know if you're an entrepreneur, tell me if you are interested in being an entrepreneur. Do you like being around entrepreneurs? Because I used to run a program for entrepreneurs at the college I started to teach at. And I had students say, like, look, I don't want to be an entrepreneur. Like, you got to take risks. There's challenges. I don't want to think about it all the time, but I want to be around it because coming back to uh, why do people become entrepreneurs is because they see a problem that they feel they can solve, and then they create these solutions and they think outside the box, and they're not scared to take a risk or a challenge on that's like gigantic. And they not only think outside the box, they build a box that they confine themselves in, and it's almost as if like they're crazy about this idea. And so it's not a bad thing if you're an entrepreneur. It's a good thing, but it is a bad thing if you're not an entrepreneur and you're trying to be an entrepreneur. You can be around entrepreneur people if you like say, hey, look, I'm not an entrepreneur, but I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be around that environment. You very well can. There's so many small businesses that need people, and they need people that have the same mindset, like they're dedicated to finding the solution, because this is a big complex problem. Remember, before we got indoctrinated called school, we were able to find solutions and we weren't about giving up. You know, like that little kid that keeps bugging you to keep asking, like, hey, can I get this? Can I get that? Like, can I have this? And you like say no, but they're like, what about this? Well, what about that? You know, as a kid, we get that, but when we go to school, they kind of like strip that away from us. And that's like what an entrepreneur mindset is. They still got that kid in them that's not going to take no for an answer. They just keep going and keep going and they keep going. And it's like, okay, fine, let's figure out a way how to do this. So you don't have to be an entrepreneur to work with entrepreneurs. Those entrepreneurs need employees. Those entrepreneurs, they need people to help them grow their businesses. So I see we got a couple more people. Thank you for joining. For those that have joined, I appreciate it. My name is Nathan Webster from Vancouver, Washington. I run a marketing agency. As I'm introducing my very first live, technically my second live, my first one, my sound wasn't working. So I appreciate you joining. Love to hear where you're from. Are you a fellow entrepreneur? Do you have any questions about marketing? I would love to answer them for you. If not, I'll just tell you a little bit more about myself for the next 10 minutes. And then feel free to subscribe to the page if you haven't subscribed already. I'd love to hear your feedback on the videos as I'm figuring this out. As I'm introducing myself, I realize that I'm introducing myself to people. What I want to introduce myself is to people that were once like me, that didn't know how to figure out where they fit in at. And like, what am I going to do when I grow up? and and at times, I'm not going to lie, I see people that I was like, man, I wish I had that life, or I wish I had this. And at the end of the day, I don't. I don't. I love what I have. I love the life that I have. Could it be better? Yes, but it could be worse too. And I'm grateful it's not what it used to be. And I'm grateful I'm working on what I want it to be. And so for the last 10 minutes, let me just then tell you my why and how I push that. And it all starts with this. Matter of fact, let me show you something. So it's funny that I people see me rock my BU. right? And they ask like, "What is this about? Be you?" And that all started because I told you earlier, I had a nonprofit and I was doing work in the schools and helping kids aspire to do their passion. And let me get the full book. Wait, do I have it? Yeah. And so I use this book. It's Kevin Carroll's The Rules of the Red Rubber Ball. I was using this book, and it's a fun book. It's like 150 pages, but it's fun. And I worked with Carroll, Kevin Carroll. Um, he got ESPN to publish it, and he said how he got denied several times, and he got denied because he says this is like way too creative. He has a powerful story. I worked with him when I was working at Nike, and I said, you know, can I use your book? And he was like, yeah, I would love to. And but these books were not cheap, and so I use these books for my curriculum. And then I realized that uh, I had to pay a lot more. I did have the funds for it, so I said, you know what? Let me create my own book. And so in creating my own book, I I wrote a book that I talked about my issues as a kid. I talked about my insecurities as even when I was growing up, and um, the book is called "Scared to Be Me." um, this was the second book that I wrote, and I this is something that I got published. This is what it looks like, and even with my kids, they were like, "What is this right here?" And I'm like, "Well, this is an N for Nathan, and it's a stick figure, and I'm holding up a mirror." And in the book, when I had to finish it, I had to make sure that I'm like this book right here. It's hard. I had to make this soft because I was going into prisons, and so I had to make this soft. And initially, I also had a spiral bound. I couldn't use that when I went into the prisons. It was boys' prisons. They called them youth camps, and so I just talked about this what it looked like. Um, and here's the word like you can purchase it and everything, but and I use this author here. It was a self-publishing place, but I didn't get the spine that I wanted, which I was disappointed. Like you can see on the shelf, like you can see like with this, I didn't get that. I learned a lot of lessons with this, but the book was important, and this is why I wear the BU, is because I was in my book and I talked about the things that I was scared to do. Now, I should say that this is a book I gave to my son. This was my last copy, and it was a book that I gave to my son, my oldest son, Josiah. And let me see if I can point it out. That was to my son Josiah. I love you with all my heart. Please love yourself and be happy. Love, Dad. And he left this with me, but this is a picture of me when I was a senior, and I just go through in the book and I just talk about certain things when it comes to life. I go from having purpose to um, building building blocks and all those things that I didn't have as a kid. Not to say like my parents didn't love me, but how that impacted me using this book, I that impacted me in my business because I learned, and like I tell my clients, your personal demons becomes your business obstacles. And those obstacles become really hard to overcome because when you get past like the family and the friends, and you get to maybe some referrals, you get to another circle of you're meeting people you never met for the first time. And if you're doing really well, you're going from like maybe a garage to like maybe this school office, maybe basic office, to where you're getting into some nice offices. You starting to see you went from having like polo shirts, t-shirts, to where I started to see some suits that weren't done, that weren't like just off the shelf. These were like custom made $3,000 suits. I'm like, wow, this is a whole nother level. And someone once told me, like, Nathan, there's still people. There's still people. So I was just like, oh, well, okay, there's still people. But I was learning at the time, still at that time, and sometimes I still struggle with this. I was still scared of just whether or not people would accept me. Until now, I just say, hey, look, that's all I got. I can't be nobody else. Everyone else is taken. I can't do anyone else, so I have to be me. And so that's really me in a nutshell. And why I chose this lifestyle is because I believe, one, first and foremost, God wanted me here, and I'm a believer. I'm grateful. And I'm not a religious person. I'm a person that I grew up in the church, and I realized it's not about religion, it's about a relationship. So I always give all glory to God. And, it even says in the Bible not to be fearful of anything. He's given us the power of love, power, and a sound mind. And that mind is to always know that when you're authentically yourself, the answers will always show up. And so as a marketer, I learned that one of the best ways that I have excelled is helping people get clients. And I've helped people get clients because I've taught them not to be scared of the things that have kept them back. I help them focus on the things that will allow them to be authentically you, because in marketing, you're helping people get clients. You're helping people sell a solution to a problem that they may not be like 100% sold on, because we love buying something that's referred to us. Someone else took the risk, and then we jumped on and we said, okay, let's go ahead and make that purchase. This is where you are like, as a marketer, I'm helping my business owner or the key decision maker say, don't be scared. I need you to be you. You started this company for a reason. You created this product or service for a reason. And now the people that will buy it from you will enjoy it. And that satisfaction and experience is your brand. So when we talk about brand strategy and there's different strategies of business, this is where marketing is an investment, and it's also everything that you're going to do. And it's not easy, because people have to believe in in themselves, not be scared of it, but they also have to believe in themselves, at the core of who they are and why they brought this to fruition. And so I would say, as I close this, I want to say thank you for joining. I appreciate it as my first live. Like, it's kind of crazy. I appreciate the like. I appreciate people joining in and jumping on. This has been very educational for me too, because I know I needed to talk about my book of Scared to Be Me, but I never did, and I don't know why I didn't. But maybe because it's just one of those things that you do back in the day. You're like, I'm gonna hold on to it. This is like how I first started it, what it was gonna look like. This took a lot of work, man. This took a lot of work, but and one of the things I talked about is it matters what type of supporting cast you have. What type of supporting cast you have makes a big difference. And in my times of being a college professor, especially helping entrepreneurs, burgeoning entrepreneurs, startups, freelancers, people that just have an idea, I realized that the number one way to allow yourself to grow, stay focused, and just stay positive is having the right people in your corner. And I would love to be in your corner. If you want to learn more about me or get in contact with me, feel free to hit me on the message. You can also email me at info@nwebsterllc.com. I'd be more than happy to talk to you. Thank you again for joining. I would love to know your thoughts. I put in the chats, I'm from Vancouver, Washington, a small suburb of Portland, Oregon, but I love to travel the world. And I've just started, and I went to Nairobi, Kenya for the second time. And man, I was blown away, and that could be for another conversation. But thank you for joining. I appreciate you. Let me know if I can help you in any way. And until next time, I wish you nothing but the best. Dream big. Godspeed. and be you. You take care.